Here we are inside the Coachman Lazer Xcel 875. If we firstly come to the main control panel just here, you will see we have main supply connected, and it's also letting us know that the onboard water tank is low, and it will also display the time. If we now turn the 12-volt system on, once we've done this, we can then turn the water pump on and off on this one here. Pump on, pump off. Obviously we need the pump on to be able to get water out of the taps and fill the Aldi boiler if it's been drained. We then have onboard lights on and off, and then they can all be individually turned on and off on their own switches. If they are the touch lights, once they've been turned off, you will need to touch them to turn them back on again. And then we have the awning light just here. All other information is then given via scrolling. So I'll explain what I see as I go through, as it does not show up particularly well on the camera. So we have the voltage of the leisure battery. We have the internal temperature of the caravan. We have how much water is in the onboard tank. We have pump selection. So at the moment we're using the external pump from the Aqua Roll. What we can do, if we now hit enter, is change it to the internal pump. So we're now going to feed off that internal water tank. We can fill the internal water tank. So again, all we do is we just hit enter, and it will then start filling up that onboard water tank from the external source. And if I now press enter again, I can then turn the water fill back off again. Next we have the settings menu, and within this we have the display, so we can change the contrast, etc. Sound, so whether or not it beeps when we touch it. Temperature units from Celsius to Fahrenheit. Weather notifications are on or off, so we can turn separate ones on and off. So at the moment it will let you know if the leisure battery is low, if you've been disconnected from the main supply, etc. And then the firmware that this control panel is running, and then save and exit. And then we go back to the beginning again. To alter the clock, just hold the enter button in, and it will begin to flash, and then we just use the arrow keys up and down to pick the correct time. Beside the main control panel, we then have the Aldi control panel for the heating and hot water system. So if we now press on just here, on the startup screen, again, it will let you know if you have mains supply connected, and will give you again an internal temperature of the caravan. If we now press menu, it will bring up its basic functions. So the top one here is the thermostat for the heating. So just plus and minus, just literally pick whatever temperature you would like it to be inside the caravan, and it will go up to a toasty 30 degrees. After that, we then have hot water. So we have hot water on, and then hot water on the boost facility. Boost facility was mainly designed for if there's going to be lots of you having showers in quick succession of each other, or if you just want a longer shower. In this particular model of caravan, this does come also fitted with the Aldi Flow just here. So as long as you have that boost running, you will have continuous hot water for as long as you have water in your system. And you will see you get the icon just up there. After that, so after heating and hot water, we then have power source. So at the moment we haven't actually picked a power source, so the system's not going to be doing anything. So the first one here is for main supply. We can run the system on 1 kilowatt, 2 kilowatts, or 3 kilowatts, just dependent on the ampage of the site that you're on. If we don't have main supply, we can run on gas, and if you have both supplies available to you, you can actually run in dual fuel. This will get you up to temperature extremely quickly, and it will only use the gas as it is required. If we now press the settings menu, we have two timers just here. So we have a night timer, we turn it on and off just up here. We can set the temperature we would like it to be throughout that period just here. We can then set a start time, and whether that is for all days of the week or individual, and we can obviously select a stop time. We can also invert the backlight, so this white screen here will go to black and the writing will go to white, and we can also activate the no hot water function throughout that period as well. And then we have the day mode, so virtually the same again. Prioritize is actually what the system prioritizes in using when in dual fuel mode. So at the moment it will favor main supply over gas. If you are on an extremely low amp site, you can flip it on its head, so it will consume more gas, less electric. After that, we just have the brightness of the screen. This one is not used on this model. If we're going to be using timers, this one here will just set the correct time and day of the week. If we then arrow down, majority of these are for the workshop, so you can't actually access these. The only one we can access is this one here. This one is antimicrobial. You do have to be using night mode for this to actually work. So night mode has to be set, and this one is then activated as well. And then at about 2-3 o'clock in the morning, the boiler will come on and heat up rapidly to kill off any bacteria that may be in the system. Temperature offset, so if you don't think the onboard thermostat is quite correct, you can just tweak it by a few degrees. High altitude mode, so if the caravan is 1,000 meters above sea level, you can activate this to make it run better at that different air pressure. Whether you prefer key beeps on or off on this one. Instead of having multiple timers, you can just have this one, so it's just a delayed start and stop to the system. Pump settings, just leave it set on thermal. If it's on continuous, the solution in the radiators will just constantly flow through them. Full factory reset, so if there is a problem with the system, you can reset it. External start, you do have to have additional components added for this, and then you could control the heating and hot water via an app. Language, service, again more for the workshop, but you can view what the temperature for the heating is and the water temperature. Installed accessories, the only one that's really of any use in here is this one, which is load monitor. If I now arrow back up again, you'll now see that this is highlighted, so we can actually use it. So if you arrive on site and you know how many amps the site is, we can pick, and then it doesn't matter what you've got running here, it will limit itself to stop you from tripping. And because that is now an activated function, we have the quick access to it, and then we can then turn it back off or turn it up or down. Next we actually have the Aldi boiler itself. So as I just stated, we have the flow part of the system just there for the continuous hot water in conjunction with the boost facility. We then have the Aldi boiler itself just here, and then tucked just down here we have the drain point for the boiler itself for travel and winterization. So tucked down there you will see a drain valve just there. All we need to do is flip that up to drain the boiler for winterization. We need to make sure they're flapped over to refill it again. We also have in here the consumer unit, so the battery charger sits in this part just here, and then the trip switches all sit here. So we have the individual MCBs just there, they are all labelled up. We have the main RCD and the test button, and then we have all the 12 volt fuses again all labelled up all along the bottom of the unit. Also in here, just, you may not be able to see, but just tucked down at the front of the unit just here, we have gas isolation taps. They are all in the on position and can stay like that. And you also have underneath here the emergency retract button for the self-leveling system just there. In this overhead locker we have the television aerial. So we have the digital amplifier just there, on and off on the top, and we can then control the boost on the inner dial just here. Undo the collar just here to lower and raise the mast. This window here just represents the back of the aerial, so we know which way we are pointing. Once we've got it in the position we require, just lock into place. Do not over tighten these collars because they can split. We are currently in the horizontal position. We can flip the aerial into the vertical position for additional tuning by turning this tail here. Do make sure that the aerial is down for travel. There is also a switch just here, and that turns on the courtesy light on the off side of the caravan. We then have the stereo just here, on and off on the button that says SRC. CD in here, eject on here. We then just literally press the SRC button to go between the radio, the auxiliary. Digital radio is not connected up on this. You do have that option if you purchase a digital aerial. And then literally change tracks and search for radio stations just on these arrows just here. To gain access to the menu, just press the volume button in and then rotate, and you can change treble, bass, etc., the illumination, go into its full system settings just here, and then hold the SRC button back in again to turn off. As we move along, we have the hob. So we've got one electric hot plate that runs off the main supply and is turned on and off on this dial just here. Just make sure it's on, as it were, because there's no light that comes on, so just be careful. We then have everything else running off the gas, and it is just push in, twist and push the igniter. Beneath the hob we then have the grill, And again, that's just push in and then press the igniter. And then the oven beneath. The oven also has a light. Beneath the oven we have a plug plugged in, which is for the electric hot plate. We have the microwave. Do make sure that the contents is removed for travel, and then it behaves like most microwaves. You have your quick start just here and your stop, timer select, power setting, defrost, etc. just there. And the microwave is plugged in this overhead locker just here. In the ceiling we have the Omnivent fan on and off on this middle button just here. To raise the roof, just wind, and then we have variable fan speed just by pressing. And then make sure that we're all wound back down again for travel. Next we have the Dometic fridge freezer. You turn on and off just by holding the button in. This is an automatic model, so as long as you are on the auto setting, it will find the best power source it can for you. So because we're hooked up to main supply at the moment, it's put us onto the mains. If I now went outside and unplugged this, it would then automatically attempt to fire itself up onto gas, and as soon as you hitch up to your tow vehicle and start the engine, it will then automatically go over to 12 volt maintain. If we now push the button in, you will see as I rotate it will go over all the different icons. So the first one just here is the temperature control. Just press in and then we can adjust it depending, and then just press the button to select. After that we can take it out of auto if we wish. So we can manually put it onto 12 volt maintain, manually put it onto gas, or manually put it onto main supply. And then if we drop to the lower icons, we can adjust the brightness of the screen, whether or not we get warning beeps if it loses power, etc. We have the extra fan setting, so if the weather outside is extremely hot, this aids in keeping the unit running at the correct temperature. And then we also have, in conjunction with that, the anti-condensation jacket activation. This will stop a build-up of condensation behind the unit during hot climate. And then we have the freezer box, and the fridge. And then to turn back off again, just hold. If we now go inside the wardrobe, you will see we have the header tank for the Aldi heating system. All we need to make sure is that the fluid is between the minimum and the maximum. Always take your reading once the heating is up to temperature, as the fluid will expand in the tank. If it does need topping up, we can do it ourselves just by undoing here and adding the correct Aldi top-up solution. So in this case it needs to be the pink one, which does not need changing for 5 years. If we now go underneath the bed, underneath here we have the access point to the onboard water tank. So to drain it down for travel and winterization, all we need to do is come to this lever here and pull it up, and this will then drain it down. We then come into the washroom. So we have the shower just here. We have the basin just here. And the Thetford toilet. So bowl moves all around. To open to the cassette, just use the grey lever just here. And then push to flush on the top just here. We will get a level indicator just here to let you know when the cassette needs emptying, and then we close the cassette back up like so. If this is left open and you try to remove the cassette from the outside, it will not come out. So if you are getting resistance, just come back inside the caravan and check that no one's left the flap open.